Article after article tells us that Robert Downey Jr. is back to play Dr. Doom. That's what Marvel wants you to believe, and they're willing to pay out $100 to $200 million to have everyone buy into the charade. But we are here to rain on their parade, for, you see, we've been saying for years that RDJ was coming back. But to play Iron Man, Tony Stark. And guess what, folks? We're still saying it, and we're still right. They're still in the dark. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the Pro Channel, where we are changing hearts and minds simply by telling the truth and by getting scoop after scoop absolutely correct. A track record of excellence right here on the channel. And if you'd like to go check that out, we did an audit at the end of 2023 where it was found that we had a 93%-ish accuracy rating. Don't remember exactly. It was 92.5, 93.5, somewhere around there. Sounds like radio stations, but it's not. It's an accuracy rating for all of the scoops we had last year, and we're continuing to try to do just that again this year. Can we top it? We shall see. One thing Marvel is trying to see is, can they top the ending for Iron Man back in Endgame? And you better believe they didn't bring back Robert Downey Jr. to have a defeat in the eyes of the fans as he plays a loser Dr. Doom. No, they're bringing him back and paying those huge sums of money for him to be some kind of something as Tony Stark, as Iron Man yet again. We're sticking to it, folks, because we believe it and we believe our sources. Hate to have to spoil the movie, but in this case, we were doing this for a year or more, so it would be hard to reverse course and do a U-turn now. Hughie's, no, we will not. All right, let's bring on the panel and discuss whether or not they think this is happening. This out of The Hollywood Reporter by Aaron Couch. Robert Downey Jr. recalls Kevin Feige pitching him Doom. Let's get Victor Von Doom right. Folks, I want to read to you this story that we're being told, and then I'm going to explain why you should not buy this at all. If this was a stock, I would be telling you to sell the stock, and we don't give financial advice here. But here's what we've got. Around a year ago, Robert Downey Jr., also known as the RDJ, and his wife and producing partner Susan Downey sat down with Marvel studio boss Kevin Feige for a chat. It wasn't unusual, but the conversation soon took a multiverse-shattering left turn when Feige suggested Downey could return to the MCU even though his character, Tony Stark, was dead. He said, "It just keeps occurring to me, if you were coming back, you could make me a ton of money and save my job." No, that's not what he said. Downey said in the latest episode of the Hollywood Reporter's Awards Chatter podcast. Susan, his wife, was like, wait, come back as what? Downey and Feige went on to talk about issues that needed to be resolved should the actor return. How can we not go backwards? How can we not disappoint expectations? How can we continue to beat expectations, Downey recalled, added the actor, and he brought up Victor Von Doom. I looked into this character. Later on, he goes, let's get Victor Von Doom right. So in other words, they were talking about bringing him back and what they could do, and then later on they talked about Victor Von Doom. Interesting. Downey already wanted to be Disney CEO Bob Iger about contributing to the company's parks and location-based entertainment, and soon he found himself at the mogul's home. Iger already seemed to know about the Dr. Doom idea and quickly told Downey, I like it, before arranging for the actor and Feige to visit Disney's engineering campus to see what was in the works there, talking about the parks. In the years since leaving the MCU, Downey has remained close to the Avengers directors Joe and Anthony Russo, who, by the way, about a year and a half ago, we told you that it was a package deal. Downey would come back with the Russo brothers. Guess what, folks? Downey came back with the Russo brothers. So if you're looking for the track record that you want to buy into, stick around right here. We'll do a dandy of a deal for you. As well as Iron Man director Jon Favreau. At San Diego Comic-Con in July, Feige confirmed that the Russo brothers were back to direct a pair of movies, Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars. A group of men dressed as Doom swarmed the stage. You all saw it. You all know it. Downey walked out, said, new mask, same task. Boy, I tell you, I like playing complicated characters. Now, panel. Notice here that there is no part of this where he says, I'm not coming back to play Tony Stark. In fact, he has never, ever said when he's doing these interviews, I am not playing Tony Stark. Why would he not say that? Well, folks, I'm here to tell you, and I know we're having some audio issues. Apologies. I'm here to tell you, RDJ would not come back to the MCU to go out as a loser. Is everybody listening to that?
Yeah.
Despite the audio issues? RDJ is not coming back after having victoriously vanquished with his character the big baddie of the day to come back and play a villain who's going to be defeated. RDJ is coming back to do a switcheroo on all of you, but not on you, on the fans out there who are not watching content such as this. Panel, take it away while I try to resolve some of these audio issues.
I think that you're absolutely right. I think there is no. I think the concept of him as a villain has a shelf life on it, and I think that the big return to form as Iron Man as Tony Stark. That's kind of what the big money moment is, and that's going to be the selling point for Secret War, I believe.
Yeah, it would feel like a massive missed opportunity and waste. Like, why would you bring back the guy who arguably played not even arguably, he played the lead character of the MCU. He was the MCU. The MCU only worked because Iron Man worked. And he was the face of it. Like, Chris Evans as Cap, he did a fantastic job. No disrespect there. He was like the second guy, right? He was like the co-star, but he was still number 2. You don't bring back a guy like Robert Downey Jr. Into the same universe. Like, multiverses be damned. You don't do that and not leverage what you can still actually do with it. Like, look, if we're doing this comic book thing, and comic book fans know deaths don't really mean all that much anymore. That's a long time frustration with comic book fans. We could have that conversation at another point. But the fact of the matter is, they could bring him back. They could make it work. If they got a good enough writer on the project, they could make Tony Stark coming back work. And they could have Robert Downey Jr. there, and they could make a butt ton of money off of it. Because people would, even those who have been apathetic towards the MCU, the people who have said, yeah, I'm not interested in this trash that's coming out in phases 4 and 5, they will see that Tony Stark's there, and they will be, not all of them, there will be enough, however, for them to say, all right, I'll give him the once over. I'll give it a shot. Don't screw it up, because if you screw that up, then that's when everybody just checks out. Like, you couldn't even get that right? And sorry, I'm out of here. Peace, deuces. But they have an opportunity there. And from everything that I have heard and read about his wife in terms of how she manages his career, she would not be the person to allow him to take a role that would end up being a detriment.
Okay, let me ask you this.
That would be a detriment.
Let me ask you this then, and panel, anybody who wants to weigh in, do so. If you're going to bring back Robert Downey Jr., and he's going to be a triumphant in some way, maybe multiverse, but maybe resurrected in some way, Tony Stark. If you want to do that, and you want to trick the audience and have it be this huge, moment in cinema that warrants bringing him back, you're going to have to find a reason that he is on the production set. You're going to have to hide it some way. And with a big name like RDJ, you can't just bring him onto the Marvel set and be like, he just showed up for coffee today. Never going to work. So I'm here to tell you, I think the entire thing. Now, I'm not saying that he's not going to play Doctor Doom. And I believe in the first film that he's back in, he probably will be mostly Doctor Doom. But I think it's a giant Trojan horse to sneak him back in as a Stark and just try their very best to not answer any questions about this. Maybe even convince us in that first film before they swap the mantle to bring the multiverse saga to an end.
I think what you have to do here is you have him as Dr. Doom in that first movie, and then you reveal that it was Viggo Mortensen wearing Tony Stark's face the whole time. If you're going to do Viggo Mortensen as Doom Prime, and then when you get to Battle World, then the way to combat Dr. Doom, we have to bring Iron Man and Captain America back to lead the heroes of Marvel against Viggo Mortensen Doom Prime.
Yeah. I think we got to be careful not to convolute the whole Marvel universe, though, because comics, as I think Andrew was hinting at, can just become just a mess and convoluted, and then it really pushes readers away, because after a while you're just like, oh my goodness, what are you guys doing now? So you have to be careful to balance and write a good story and have an actual plotted out reason, movie after movie after movie. I'm worried they're going to put this Tony as a Skrull. If they do that, how are they going to get out of that, and what what is Robert Downey Jr. going to then do after that? Like, what is his actual purpose? If it's just to play a Skrull, I'm not interested because that's too predictable. So they have to be really careful about where they're, what they're doing. Because Doom is a huge character in the comics. I think he's a overrated character at times, but I think he has a lot of potential, especially with Viggo Mortensen playing him. So I see, like, if they do it properly, yes, but do not convolute this. Kind of have a direction, go with it, run with it, and kind of stop doing all these like multiverse things because it just confuses fans. It confuses your average fan, and it really drives people away from the product, in my opinion.
Victor Von Doom is a...
That's why I have a hard time following any of the comic stuff in the Marvels. It's all just jumbled to me, and I don't know what's left, what's right, what's up or down.
Yeah,
it's not a cohesive story from one movie to the next. And my sister's the same way. We're both look at each other like, do we even know what's going on?
I think that's why the multiverse idea has failed. I also think, by the way, Erika, that's why Star Wars, to some degree, has failed, is because they're all over the place in terms of the timeline.
Yeah, same thing with Star Wars. Yeah, it's the same thing. And I've plugged out. Not that I even ever got a chance to even get my toes wet into it, but after so many movies in, it just got to the point where it's like, well, I mean, the whole Spider-Man thing alone, there's a Sony version and then there's this other version. What's all that about? And I'm like, you know what? I just don't even care, you know?
So I want to show you all this point. Very well taken. And I think you speak on behalf of so many, and that's why they're going to wrap this up, because they got to get back to a singular storyline. The sacred timeline needs to be one timeline. That's it. When we brought out that Viggo Mortensen rumor, it was just about at that same time that this article came out, and then Space Dave was talking about predictability, and I just thought this was too perfect. I hadn't planned this. Let me show this to you real quick. This is by Zach Sharf out of Variety. Viggo Mortensen hasn't acted in Hollywood franchise after Lord of the Rings because they're not usually well written and kind of predictable. Now let's go to a paragraph that matters, because we believe that Viggo Mortensen has been in negotiations with Marvel, but we also, according to our source, and again, folks, speculation here, take it with a grain of salt, we don't believe that the contract is signed yet. We don't think they have this locked down, and they may not. So I tend to think this Variety article may have a bit of posturing in it from Mr. Mortensen. And it says this, it says, I don't really look for or avoid any kind of genre or any size budget. Now that's key, because this article is really about indie films, and he kind of diverts here into this. I just like interesting stories. It doesn't matter to me what the genre is or what the budget is or who's making them. I would never do a movie just because so-and-so is directing it. All of this, if you see it through the lens of what if he is being asked by Marvel, all of this takes on a different meaning than if you're just reading this, ho-hum, point blank, no reading between the lines. It has to be about the story. And if I think I'm right for the character, that always comes first. Here we go. This is where it gets even more interesting, because this interview has nothing to do with Marvel or franchises or anything. It's about indie films. He says that goes for franchises. If somebody came to me with X movie, the third part or the ninth part, and I thought it was a great character and I wanted to play that character and I thought I had something to contribute, I'd do it. I'm not against it, but they're not usually that good. I mean, to me, they're not usually that well written. They're kind of predictable. I mean, of course, there's always the issue of if I run out of money. Okay, so he ends with a tongue-in-cheek statement there. But if you see that interview from the standpoint of what if he's negotiating with Marvel, I think he's laying some cards on the table there. And I don't think that Robert Downey Jr. is coming back to play Doctor Doom the whole way through. I don't think that he is the Doctor Doom. I could be wrong. And again, we don't know what's going to happen with the contractual negotiations, but that's where I think we stand with it. I do not for a second think that RDJ is coming back and not eventually in this movie deal going back to playing Tony Stark. There's no way on this earth he's not doing that. Kevin, am I wrong anywhere on this?
No, I think you're spot on. Look, as a comic fan, I have feelings on it, and I think at this point, the multiverse story stuff failed with Marvel because Marvel Comics proper has never been a multiverse company. That's always been a DC thing. So they were out there kind of in the fringes, and they would have been doing whatever they wanted to do, and they were not able to execute it. But just the sheer amount of money allegedly given to Robert Downey Jr. and the Russo brothers does not suggest that this is a 2-movie thing.
I don't think it's allegedly anymore. I think he's getting paid $200 million.
Yeah, you're not giving someone $200 million to be the bad guy who gets defeated in 1 or 2 movies.
Amen.
This is franchise player money. We know we screwed up. They never should have killed him. He was the epicenter of the universe. Everything revolved around Tony Stark, and that was to their detriment. But hey, guess what? No one expected his performance to be so strong other than Jon Favreau. So you created a situation where there's this giant vacuum. There's a giant vacuum in the universe, and it's not working, and you got rid of all of your anchors. You've got to correct it. So now it's time to do something drastic. And I think they have to take the risk of confusing a couple of people, and I think people will be willing to be confused because they trust the Russos. Whether you found the Russos from episodes of Community or Endgame, people trust them. They like their movies, and they like their style of storytelling. I think they can pull it off. I really hope that they somehow find a way to introduce a Doom Prime before we pull this stunt, or else I think a lot of very wary MCU people will not give this a chance that they think that they are going to get, because the wonderful thing about goodwill is, once you build it, it's pretty durable, but once you break it, it's really hard to come back, and we are
extremely hard to get it back.
We're past the broken stage.
I think you're exactly right too on the point of you've got to get somebody with major gravitas to play Dr. Doom if RDJ is going to switcheroo in the middle of the movies. So that's why I think there is some credence to this Viggo rumor. And I will say that when I first heard this scoop and I shared it with some of the people behind the scenes at that Park Place, there was pushback, and they said Viggo's never going to play, in Marvel. He's not into that sort of thing. And this was from people who are actually rather close, people who have talked to Viggo in the past. And then we got word of that interview, and the response was, well, that's something, isn't it? And we said, well, I guess we're going to run with this rumor then, since we've got the source claiming it. So we did, and here we are. We'll see how it all plays out. Marvin, go ahead.
Sorry.
Please, Dave.
I think Viggo is a Shakespearean level actor, right? And that's what Doom needs to be. They need somebody who can play that character, understand the depth, why he is who he is. He's not just twirl his mustache and I'm going to get you. He's not that kind of bad guy. He's a very complex, very multi-layered character, and I think Viggo is the perfect actor for him. I hope they choose him, and I hope they work it out, and I hope they don't play something dumb along the way, as I said previously. So I'm looking forward to that choice. I hope
he's also a heavy manipulator too.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
he manipulated Sue Storm into having their freaking kid named by him. So that he is a master manipulator. So I can totally see Victor Von Doom doing something to the effect of wearing Tony Stark's face and getting people all riled up emotionally, right? And then we get the reveal eventually. That's something he could and would do.
And Viggo and RDJ are not that different, I don't think. I think if these are going to be variants in some way, I think that you could actually play that pretty well. It's not a stretch, perhaps.
Yeah.
But then do you introduce him maybe in a post-credit scene for the Fantastic Four? Because the only thing that's weirding me out about this Doom is that he's not really connected to Reed at all from what we're seeing. Doom and Reed have to be connected. You can't do what you did with Ultron, where you took him away from Hank Pym and you put him with Tony Stark. You have to connect Doom with Reed. They are so
they're parallel.
They're Batman and the Joker. They're arch nemesis. You have to, and especially if you want to make Reed a major player, which I don't know if that's going to happen because Reed is Pedro Pascal.
Yeah.
I want to add one more thing. I think it's okay to say this, and we're gonna expound on this greatly in the morning for the Pro AM video, folks. So check that out in the morning at 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. I'm here to tell you the cancellation of the High Republic, which we believe is on the way, seems to be connected with the succession of CEOs at Disney for who's going to be the next person to take over from Bob Iger. I'm going to explain that. I'm going to explain that in the morning. But I can tell you that Lucasfilm has lost the support that it had at Disney. Let me go just one step further carefully. In the past, we have been told that Alan Bergman, who is the head of the movie side of things at Disney, head of all of it, right? He's above Feige and above Kathleen Kennedy. And we have been told in the past that Bergman is not necessarily a fan of Kathleen Kennedy, not necessarily a fan of what happened to Star Wars. But someone else who is on par with Bergman seemed to be very, very, let me say it again, very protective of Kathleen Kennedy. And it may be why Kathy kept the job for so long. That person is Dana Walden, who is also very good friends with Kamala Harris. We're going to start talking about what's been changing behind the scenes starting in the morning. But I will tell you that it seems to have something significant in terms of the High Republic cancellation and more coming to Lucasfilm. We look forward to telling you about it. Panel, your thoughts on maybe big changes happening?
I mean, it's about time, right? How much did this woman have to fail before somebody finally stepped in and was like, no, we are not going to let the most evergreen franchise of all time go the way of the dodo. And you know, unfortunately, I think it's almost
now,
too late.
Marvin, we're not calling people names now. You take that back. Kathy is not a dodo. She's a barista.
That's very true. I've heard she couldn't even make a good cup of coffee. But anyway, the failure of Star Wars is something that's going to be studied in film classes for years, I think. And it's just a matter of like I always say, concept to creation takes so long in Hollywood. By the time we get to a point where we can actually start to course correct this thing, is there anything going to be left to save? And that's the question. I think maybe Star Wars has to go dark for a few years. And then what I've been saying for years, once Kathleen is gone, the only way forward is forward. You jump 100 years into the future, 500 years into the future. You go to a spot where the Jedi can be ascendant again, where, you know, you have Jedi all over the galaxy and you can tell new stories with new characters that have nothing, that's not going to run into anything. The Mandalorian is always going to eventually run into the First Order. Anything between episodes 3 and 4 are always going to run into the original trilogy eventually. You need room to breathe and to create.
Or my mom had a funny comment. And I quote, tell them they could pull a Dallas and have everything a dream.
Well,
holodeck
would be a nightmare. It would be a nightmare at this point.
Shake off that nightmare.
What did I say on the show the other day, Pro? It was going to be like Newhart. Luke Skywalker's going to wake up and be like, I had this dream. There was this girl and she was like, she was so good at everything.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one person who is going to have an awful time with all of this, of course, is Space Dave. Space Dave, I'm so sorry that you're losing Geode. I know that you loved that character.
He was my mentor, man. I read that series just to get inspiration from Geode and what to do.
A rock, a foundation, indeed.
Yeah, he's like don't build your
igneous
house on
pun.
sand, build it on Geode. So
a solid friend whenever you needed him.
Yeah, he doesn't talk much, but
unless he's around kids, in which case you don't want him to talk anymore.
I mean,
bad Geode.
I agree with Marvin. I think Lauren has said before, and he's wise man, is that you just park this franchise for 10 years, let a generation kind of forget about it, including us, and then bring it back, in luster. And I would think the only other option would do maybe go old school and go the Knights of the Old Republic route. That would be the only thing I think you could do to read.
I trust them to touch that.
Yeah, I don't trust them too much, but
never. Don't
we've
let
all
them
said
anywhere near it.
Yeah, that's right. If she's gone, you still have everybody that was underneath her that was the Yes Woman people. So how are you going to get rid of all of them? And then you got to rebuild. It's not just rebuilding the franchise; it's rebuilding LucasArts, Lucasfilm, and all of the other parts of it. And that is going to take a lot of work, and you got to kind of get rid of all the toxicity in that place and then replace it. But I don't see that happening anytime soon. There's not a lot of hope, and it's a sad thing because Star Wars was my childhood, a lot of other people's, and they just I guess Kevin said, "Look what they've done to my baby boy." Like, oh,
I'll
my
give
goodness.
everybody a bit of hope, while at the same time acknowledging I don't think they're going to fix it anytime soon. In regards to what we're going to be talking about in the morning and beyond, folks, I want you to pay attention to what they're doing at Disney parks. They're getting rid of the story
Yeah.
for Smuggler's Run, and they're replacing it with Mandalorian and Grogu, despite the fact that they don't fit in the timeline of that part of the park. They're going to be phasing out a lot of stuff. Keep that in mind. We'll talk more about it tomorrow. High Republic, the first seeming casualty to changes on the way. And folks, we've come to the end yet again. Another video of excellence in the can. And why is it excellent, you ask? Well, because you were here with us. On the way out the door, consider clicking the like button. Share, subscribe, click it, stick it to the algorithms. It is the notification bell. Drop a comment down below. And if you would be so kind, consider sharing this out on your favorite social media platforms. We will miss you until the next time, but until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep having fun.